Hey gang, welcome to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you step by step how you can begin tracking and splitting expenses with someone else, be it your partner, your mama, or whoever your other half is financially these days. But first, let's quickly cover why this is so helpful. Maybe you have a partner or even a roommate that you often share expenses with. And maybe you're both not the best at keeping track of who owes who what each month. Which is not to say that you and your partner should be nickel and diming each other over every expense. That's not what the system is about. But it is an option if either of you struggles with finances and wants a more clear way of understanding how much you each spend. Or if one of you tends to give more than the other, or you're not even sure who's really giving how much, a system like this can help you both ensure that you're being fair to each other, whatever you decide that looks like for you. So let's get into the tech. We're going to take your expenses spreadsheet and quickly build a way for you to begin doing this special tracking. Now, first things first, if you don't have an expense tracking spreadsheet, check out the links in my video where I teach you how to easily build this. Or check the links in the description for other ready-made tools that can get you started a little more quickly. And I'm assuming that you already understand what expense tracking means and why it's super important to your financial success and your partner's. But if you don't, be sure to check out my 5-minute explainer video on how to get started with tracking and why it's so important. Okay, let's get into it and open our expense tracker spreadsheet. And to quickly recap what it is we're looking at here, we have our transactions exported from our credit card or bank account, along with the date of the transaction, the description, and the amount. We've also categorized each transaction using our own personal list of categories. Again, if you don't have this set up yet, check out the links in the description for easy options to get you up and running. Then come back here. Now, in broad strokes, we have this amount column, which tells us how much our transaction was. But if you're splitting expenses with a partner, you might only owe a smaller portion of whatever this number reflects. So let's add 2 new columns, one to capture what it is that you owe, and another to capture what your partner owes. And now let's add a third column to indicate if a transaction is going to be considered a shared transaction, meaning we intend to split it with this other person. You can do this with a drop-down or simply typing the word yes into the column. But for this video, I'm going to use a checkbox. Okay, so now that we have these columns, we can look at individual transactions and split apart where we owe a lesser amount and where our partner might owe a portion. If you're always splitting your shared expenses in half, then you can automate some of this by adding a formula into both of our new columns that divides whatever is in the amount column by 2. And you can program it to do this only in cases where that shared box in this column is checked. So if that's of interest to you, I'll show you how to do that formula, but it's also perfectly fine to enter these numbers manually. So formula time. In our amount owed column, I'm going to use an if statement that checks whether the shared expenses box for the transaction is checked off. And note that with checkboxes, something that's checked off comes up as true. This is the condition or logic that makes up the first part of our if statement syntax. So in cases where that condition is true or it's been met, I'm going to take the value in our original amount column and divide that by 2. Otherwise, when that condition isn't met, meaning the box isn't checked, I just want the cell to remain empty. Let's hit enter. And we don't see anything yet, but I'll do the same thing for our partner's amount column. Okay, now before we copy and paste our formulas everywhere, let's give this a quick shot. Let's say I have this transaction and I know that this should be a shared expense with my partner. I'll check the box in our new shared expenses column, and you can see that our new amount columns correctly calculated the split between my person and I. And gang, remember, if you do want to use the formulas, but know that there are times when you don't necessarily want to split things 50-50, you can still do that. Just keep those formulas intact. And then as you're categorizing your transactions each month, in scenarios where you owe a little more or a little less, just overwrite those cells as you're coding. But just keep in mind that if you're going to manually override your formula, you still want to make sure that the amounts you both owe add up to whatever the original amount was from your export. So I'm going to change the formula in my partner column so that it always equals the difference between the original amount billed to me and my portion. And I'm going to keep the if logic that only does this when the shared expense column is checked. And so that way you can see if I override my formula because there's a month where I'm spending more for a certain transaction, my partner's amount will automatically recalculate so that the amount we both owe always equals to the amount from my statement. You just have to remember to keep your negative amounts and your positive amounts aligned so that you're accurately tracking what income you may be splitting and what expenses. Now that I know that this works, let's make sure that these formulas go down the rest of our sheet and we'll be good to go. And final tip, assuming your expenses tab covers the entire month, let's add a section to the top of our spreadsheet that shows what we spent and what our partner spent as well. That way, when it comes time to sit at the dinner table to resolve bills, you have an easy and clear reference of what it is that they owe you for what you've already paid. So let's just move some columns, make room. Let's format the top and make it a little nice. And then for our formula, all we're going to do is sum the entire amount of each of our two amount columns. Perfect. And now at the end of the month, you know exactly what you spent and what your partner may or may not owe you. And as long as they do the same with their transactions, you'll know what you owe them as well. Gang, I hope this video was helpful in showing how you can practically and effectively manage your spending when it's entangled with someone else's. If this video was helpful, please give it a thumbs up. And for more tips, be sure to subscribe.